Hey everyone, Ethan here, back with another video, and I know it has been quite a while since anything's been uploaded to this channel, blah 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 blah. Instead of making a channel update video, at least right now, I'm just going to tell you guys in here that there will be a lot of content coming. Getting back kind of into the groove of things, been doing a lot of back-end work. As you can see, there's a server rack sitting next to me, which probably roughly 25 to 30% of the point of that is actually in relation to the stuff that's going on with the channel, the website, the podcast, all that kind of stuff. So that is going to be all starting to kind of roll back in here soon as time permits. I'll probably make a dedicated video explaining more details about scheduling and stuff like that. Anyway, though, that is not the purpose of this video. I know it's, like I said, it's been a while, but I actually wanted to talk about a project that I have up and coming. As you can see, I've not really focused in the center of the room like I usually am, but offset a little bit over to where this APC server rack is, or cage if you want to be more technical since it's enclosed. But anyway, I'm pretty excited to be introducing this guy right here, and this is a project that I'm calling Project Shut the Fuck Up because this is an old server here. Servers are noisy. This is also my home theater. My workstation's right over there, and my bedroom is through a wall 5 feet that way. So I need stuff that's not super annoying. You may actually be able to hear some of the switches and stuff like that. Their fans are running right now. I'm not sure if the mic's picking that up very well, as well as some networking cards I've got in that server over there that's going in the rack later. Anyway, though, point is, this is kind of the introduction to tell you guys what I'm doing with it, and it'll be a probably multi-part video, because otherwise it'd be pretty long. But this server here is an old SuperMicro CSE series chassis, 8046, I think is the technical series for it, as long as I'm remembering that correctly. And it is a beast of a server that I got for a very good deal. You can find these for pretty good deals right now. Actually, is a great time to buy them, but I got a particularly great deal on this one for $350, and it's going to be turned into an exclusively FreeNAS storage server that I use for all my Plex data, all my backups of family computers and stuff like that, as well as all of my video coverage. And that's all going to go on here, starting with 6 8-terabyte hard drives, so 48 terabytes, which leaves what would be 36 terabytes usable in a RAID Z 6 setup, a parity setup. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I'm going to be doing to this server to make it quiet, hence the name Project Shut the Fuck Up, because this thing is very, very, very noisy. In fact, I will turn it on here for a second, and hopefully you guys can hear that. So I've got the server powered on now. The fans will be spinning up to max speed now. I don't even know at this point if you guys can hear me talking over the fans. They're quite noisy. That is not even all of them in operation. Let me slot the last one in to spin that one up too. So as you can see, it's pretty noisy. I'll go ahead and shut it off now. Thing's pretty loud, so I've got a lot of work to do to quiet that thing down to something that is more usable. Now that was 100% fan speed. They run closer to like 50% when it's actually operating in normal operation, but they could hit speeds close to that high under any kind of heavy load, although it's FreeNAS. So anyway, to go over the specs before I tell you all the changes that I'm making to it, it has two Xeon 2620 6-core 12-thread CPUs, so a total of 12 cores and 24 threads. Plenty for FreeNAS. It's a great CPU to use for FreeNAS. It's very well supported, widely used in even some new FreeNAS boxes. So great CPU on that end. Passive heat sinks on that. We've got an LSI, a Vago, whatever you want to call them, HBA that's connected to the back plane in here. And the back plane supports 6 gigabits per second per drive. Not all at the same time, but pretty close to it. And that backplane is supporting 24 different hard drives that are all hot swappable. Then we've got 5 fans and some RAM and a pretty big motherboard. It's an XR9D something. I always forget the name of that board for some reason. So quite a bit of high-end hardware. I'm also putting a dual 10 gigabit NIC into that because I'm going to need high transfer speeds to this. I'm setting up a 10 gig network here, partly for the work that I do for the channel. So in terms of changes, before I talk about what's making it quieter, I'll talk about the spec changes that are happening. So I'm going to be adding more RAM, obviously obviously. It only has 16 gigabytes. I'm ripping all of that out and putting in probably 32 gigabytes to start of ECC RAM, and that'll be ramped up to somewhere in the range of 128 or so, depending on how much storage I have in there. I like to stick to the 1 gig of RAM per 1 terabyte of storage FreeNAS rule. Not that that really matters that much. In fact, at work, we run a 720 terabyte server with 256 gigs of RAM, and the thing is a monster and functions fine. It just really depends on what you're doing. But I like to stick to that for my setup because I'm not approaching a petabyte in this thing or anything like that. It'll be just over 100 terabytes probably by the time I fill all the drive space on it. Maybe 150. So anyway, adding more RAM, adding the 10 gigabit NIC, and then the hard drives. I'm gonna have 2 SSDs in here. They'll be redundant for FreeNAS, as you kind of expect. And then 6 hard drives to start, and adding sets of 6 until I have 4 sets of 6 in there, configured in a RAID Z6. So that's 2 parity drives, so 4 of those 6 drives can be used. I was thinking about doing sets of 8 because you get a little better storage efficiency, but I'd rather have a little better redundancy instead, so that's what I'm sticking with. And for all of the people that are probably gonna comment that, remember, your storage server and RAID Z is not a backup. You need to have a backup. Yes, I do have offsite backups of absolutely everything. That is fine. There's a Google Drive trick to back up everything for relatively low cost. So that's what I use to do that. So those are the main spec changes that are going to be changing on it. I may add an extra hard drive that's aside from the 24 drives in here. That'll be for like a temporary drive, probably like a 8 or 10 terabyte drive that's used just to put stuff on where there's no redundancy, but I don't want to waste the processing resources and stuff to do parity. Almost like you could almost call it like a cache drive or something like that. Point would be though, just stuff that doesn't need to be redundant right away, or maybe is temporary files that doesn't need to be redundant ever and will be deleted later. So those are the changes that are happening there. Now for what's happening in order to make this quiet, and hence the name Project Shut the Fuck Up once again. I'm replacing all of the fans and potentially the coolers as well as the power supplies. So to start, I actually ordered, and they'll be here soon. I don't have them to show you guys yet, unfortunately. I ordered 3 of the green fan series from SuperMicro. They're called, I think the model number is literally fan FAN-0074L4. I think that's the one I went with, which is the kind of middle tier one. They have one that's even lower RPM than that, but I don't think it'll be quite enough airflow once I have all the drives slotted in here. So I went that direction, and I'm hoping those fans will be quiet enough that I don't feel like I need to do serious modding to replace the middle fans with Noctuas, because that takes some work, although I have an idea of how to do that. And so these fans in here are actually the ones that are currently rocking in here. These are 6,700 RPM, and they're pretty beastly fans, but basically SuperMicro sells drop-in replacements that aren't technically supported but totally work, of these that have a green housing, and those are the lower RPM models. So that's what's happening for the 3 middle fans. There's 3 of those in here. And then for the rear fans, there's 2 80mm fans in the rear that are using a different housing. And I'm not sure how well you guys will be able to see this. I'll try and get some close-ups of it. But it's a different housing. And so this one, actually, you can unscrew the fan rather than it being a clip-in housing and replace the fan. So I have 2 80mm Noctua fans to connect to this. So those will be the replacements for these rear fans here. And then I've got to replace the power supplies with the SQ series from SuperMicro, 920 watt, because that's all my power distributor supports. They're 920 watt power supplies, which is plenty fine for what's going in here, obviously. And the SQ stands for super quiet, from my understanding. And SuperMicro, basically for the purpose of this kind of stuff, made these power supplies where they're very quiet. The fans don't run when the server's off, whereas like right now the fans on these power supplies actually are turned on. If they're plugged in, they are running. And they're just substantially quieter because it's a platinum rated power supply and all that kind of stuff. So I got to get 2 of those to replace the 2 redundant 1200 watts that I have in here, which is way overkill for the performance, the power needs of this machine. And then the final thing that I might actually have to do, but I'm hoping not to, is to replace the CPU coolers. Now, they're passive coolers, and what that means, and I'll get some B-roll of this, What that means though is there's a housing that goes over them, and they are just a heat sink without a fan on them, and they rely on the chassis airflow to cool them down. And this is actually a really common thing that you see in server setups, and it's part of why servers are so noisy, is they have to have a ton of airflow to cool those passively cool heat sinks and CPUs. So your system fans are really cooling your CPU instead of a fan that's mounted directly to a heatsink for the CPU exclusively. I'm hoping the airflow is good enough that even under high load, these CPUs sit below 70 degrees Celsius is my goal. If they're not, then that's when I'll probably have to replace those with active coolers. So a Noctua cooler, they make one that fits in 4U chassis like this that mounts on there with its own fan. The reason I don't want to do that is just because I have to take everything apart and to put the cooler on the motherboard, and it's just a decent amount of work that I don't quite feel like doing just for sake of time. And also the coolers are expensive, that's dropping another almost $200 on this machine. But if need be, I will do that. It just all depends on the airflow. And also it may be that I discover once I do all the mods with just the fans that things are fine until I have all the drive bays filled up or close to all of them. Then I may start to see temps rise more than I'd be comfortable with and have to replace them at that point in time. But anyway, that pretty much sums up what I'm doing with this. It's a big project, and I got a lot of projects up and coming for this server rack, actually. Some notable ones being this, and I'm getting a battery for it as well, because you don't really run FreeNAS without a battery backup. And then I'm also going to be moving my secondary Threadripper system over to here, and that handles Plex, Minecraft, and a few other server tasks, and that's running Windows 10. And then I'm getting another server, it might actually be another one of these, that's going to be a Proxmox box, as I like to call it, which is a virtualization platform, so I can run all kinds of operating systems on that. So lots of cool and up and coming projects that you guys will see, as well as some 10 gigabit networking stuff, because that Proxmox box is going to have some SSDs in it, and it's going to be for SSD SMB shares on the network to hopefully be able to edit from network drives, which is going to take some testing, but it would be really cool if I could edit on multiple machines. Not simultaneously, but just pick the machine that I want to work on or that's not in use to do the editing on, instead of having to transfer the files over to a machine and have local SSDs on each machine. Saves a little bit of money, and it's just kind of fun, but we'll see, because I'm a little worried about latency and other throughput aspects. But anyway, this is already getting to be kind of a long video, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about this today. I have not come up with a name for the server yet, just the project name. But it's gonna be pretty fun. So yeah, we got a lot of good stuff up and coming here, and we're gonna be featuring more server-oriented stuff on this channel, and still desktop stuff, and also general tech and all kinds of other stuff. But the primary things are gonna be server, networking, and desktop applications. That's kind of the direction that this channel's going, is to cover that kind of stuff. And something really fun, hopefully, that's happening sometime first half of next year that you guys will get to see, is what the experience is like to work with Comcast Home and get 2 gigabit fiber optic internet installed in a home situation, which is something they actually offer for pretty good pricing, unlike literally everything else that they have. And so we'll see how that goes, because there's not very much info on the internet other than a couple blog posts about what that experience is like. So I'd love to get some of it on video to show you guys what it's like to work with Comcast Consumer, Xfinity, whatever you call it, to get their 2 gigabit fiber optic service run into a home. But it's a long and expensive project. So anyway, everybody, that's everything for today. Thank you for watching. Like I said, there'll be more content on the channel, so please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Comment. I check comments all the time, and just keep an eye out for all the new stuff that we have up and coming for the channel. There's a lot of good content that's going to be coming out, and the goal is kind of to roughly do weekly videos. Like I said, more details in another channel update oriented video, but I'm not sticking to necessarily a set schedule for the video releases, because I want to release them when I'm comfortable with them being ready. And there are some weeks where I work 7 days in a week and don't have a chance to work on videos, right? So it just depends on when I can release content, but we've got a lot of good stuff coming for you guys. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day.